Warning, this video will contain spoilers for The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 15 East, so do be cautious as you go ahead and watch this video. What is going on, everyone? This is NinjaGeek here, and we are back again with another episode of The Walking Dead Reviews, going to be discussing the episode East that happened last night. Lots of questions, especially within the last 5 seconds, literally, of this episode, so let's get right into it. So last episode, we found out that Carol wanted to leave Alexandria and leave all of her people, her family behind, just for her own good. We find out what happens in this episode, but also in the introduction scene, the main part that I want to talk about is the fact that Carl actually picked up a gun, and on the grip was Negan's bat, sort of like design carved into it. So I don't know what is going on with that sequence, but you can let me know down below in the comments if you have any ideas about that. I love how when Rick and Michonne are sitting together in bed, Rick decides to tell her, obviously, that things aren't going to go wrong, that if some saviors or lots of saviors end up showing up, that they are going to be ready and prepared to fight them off. And then minutes later, you have Glenn and Michonne tagging Rosita along to try and catch Daryl, who's going to go after Dwight, because that's what he wanted to do all along. So they all now left Alexandria, as well as Rick and Morgan left because they found out that Carol left Alexandria last night for whatever the reasons that she had. So everyone's split up, and I just find that funny how Rick is saying how everyone's together, how they're going to be a strong group and protect Alexandria, whatever happens, and then literally a minute later within the show, we find them all splitting up again, and it's just like, no, now it's like unbelievable how many times they split up in this show. Now getting on to Carol. My biggest question is why all of a sudden, obviously we've seen from one of the previous episodes where it was the episode of Maggie and Carol together, we saw her kind of break into her religious style of Carol, like she realizes what she's become in this world, and we've already talked about this in episodes past. However, in this episode, it really shows how much Carol has become of herself, but she wants to try and be like Morgan, but then in the end ends up killing all those saviors that are on the road with some type of gun that she obviously put in, like sewed up into her jacket, and it was just amazing to just see that part in its own. But it's weird because you have Carol conflicting figures right before our very eyes. It's not like in one episode she feels and acts like this, and then in the next episode she acts like this, and it's like, okay, you know, that's different. But literally within minutes, she acts like Morgan, all like scared, and she makes up her own name, like not even a name that they would have known, and then they figure out that she's from Alexandria, and she completely changes. It's like she doesn't want to kill them, but she will if she has to. So I don't understand why she doesn't just go back to the old style of Carol, where we've seen where she blew up Terminus and everything like that. Why? I don't understand why she has such trouble killing them now if she did before, and I get that personal conflict between herself, but I just think that Carol would become a better character if she were to pick a side instead of conflicting between different sides. It's like, okay, we get it already. Just pick one side or the other. Don't keep conflicting back between this. Now, as far as the show goes, you know, it's an interesting character to learn, but if that was a person in real life, I would say, okay, lady, just pick a damn side, do what you want, just pick something, because it's kind of frustrating to see her going from different character to character like that. And now that things are kind of moving along and we get to see Rick and Morgan together in this episode for the first time in a long time, honestly. We know that in episodes past, Morgan has his own episode, and it's to see Morgan's side of where he built upon his character now and where he comes from is really interesting. It's a really interesting backline and storyline, but we really haven't seen him much in the recent episodes past the mid-season. He's been there, obviously, but he hasn't been in a major part of it, especially when Rick and the group and everyone decide to go kill the saviors. Morgan's obviously against that idea, but you don't really see a lot of him. So now the kind of conflict, or I guess the communication between Rick and Morgan, really show that together they're building a strong relationship together back again, because we obviously know that in season 1 they were the first characters that ever met, and it's insane to think that we're already at the end of season 6 going on to season 7, and Morgan is still here with us. Obviously he's split up between the different seasons, but no matter what, he still is here and alive, and I think that they are together. I don't think they're ever going to have a major conflict between each other. no matter what ends up happening, no matter Rick thinks the complete opposite ideas that Morgan thinks as of now, and they still are bonding together, which is really amazing in my own opinion. When Glenn, Michonne, and Rosita finally catch up to Daryl and try and get him to come back, and that doesn't end up happening, and Rosita goes off with Daryl because she believes in what Daryl believes in and that they have to kill these guys and for Daryl's own sake, but Glenn and Michonne don't feel that way and they want them back into the group. Now, do I personally feel that Daryl should go out there and kill Dwight? Yes and no. Like, I could see the personal conflict in not killing him caused all of these actions, and if he just had done it back then, things would have been better, and I think Daryl realizes that now. Obviously, that's why he wants to go try and find him. But anyways, you can't change the events of the past in this storyline, so that's just not going to end up working. And I think that I would have honestly let Daryl go. If I wouldn't have tried to stop him. That's his own personal opinion. But then we get on to Glenn and Michonne leaving and then stopping to talk to each other about that little conflict of a situation. My problem is, let's back it up a second. Why would you ever stop in the middle of the woods to talk about something? Everyone at that point should have known that something was going to happen to those two, because they're in the middle of the woods. They didn't wait till they got back onto the road, and you could even bring up the argument that, well, maybe they would have gotten caught anyways trying to get back to their car on the road. But here is my thing. Who in their mind would, even in today's world right now, would go out there in the middle of a random wooded area and sit there and have a conversation? That seems pretty dang dangerous, if I do say so myself. I would never trust that, because the woods is not a, quote, scary place, but you don't know where you're being watched from. There's so many places to hide, there's so many places to take cover from and camouflage yourself in, that anyone could literally be hiding in there. And I think that was a stupid decision of Glenn and Michonne to have a conversation at that moment in the show. But obviously they did it for the show reasons, and as the viewer, if you honestly didn't expect something to happen, then I don't know what you were thinking. If you thought it was shocking that they got captured by Dwight's group, then I don't know what to tell you, but I knew what was going to happen. As soon as Glenn and Michonne stopped, they said, well, they're screwed. They're in the middle of the woods. You can tell just by the way the shot was proportioned and how it looked. I also wanted to throw this part in there too, because after Walking Dead, I do like to watch Talking Dead, which as you know is the talk show after The Walking Dead, and it's just sparked some interesting ideas and all that stuff combined. However, last night, Denise, one of the producers of the actual Walking Dead show, actually came out and said that there is a huge relation between Season 2 and at the end of Season 6, because in this episode, as we've already discussed, and we get back to it, we see Morgan and Rick kind of together again. We didn't really see them a lot for the rest, like we discussed a few minutes ago, but it does relate back to 18 Miles Out back in Season 2, when Shane had to go, and Rick had to go out and leave Randall 18 miles out, as the title says. But the thing that really struck me was the fact that going back then in Season 2, Shane was Shane and Rick was Rick, but now we can see a table turned, where in this specific episode, Morgan acts like Rick from Season 2, and Rick acts like Shane, so we could see the character kind of developed over time. Shane obviously had that quicker adjustment, but Rick eventually caught up to where Shane is, and way past that. I mean, we thought Shane was the bad dude, and Shane was an awesome character as well as an actor back in Season 2, and if I could have anyone, I honestly probably would want Shane. A lot of people would probably disagree with me, but he was the ultimate. I would honestly want to have him if I was going to be surviving in a world like this. I think Shane would, obviously, for obvious reasons, Rick didn't believe that at that time, but now he's gotten to the point where he fully believes in what Shane believes, and I like that comparison between Season 2 and Season 6. So in the same scene that we just talked about, where Morgan and Rick were kind of talking to each other and how it kind of related back to Season 2, I also want to point out that this is probably the best moment of the episode, as well as a major key point in Season 6 as well, because of the fact that we get to find out what Morgan has done with the wolf and how it really changed Rick, to be honest. And now, as the viewer obviously know that Morgan held a wolf hostage that he's known for a while, and obviously that the wolf ended up saving Denise in the end, who then ended up saving Carl. Rick didn't know this, on the other hand. So when he found out that there was a wolf in the walls of Alexandria without anyone knowing, Rick kind of got mad. But then he changed his emotion after Morgan started explaining to Rick how it all led to the effect that because Morgan ended up keeping that wolf alive, that wolf risked his life to save Denise, who then helped to save Carl. And it really struck with Rick. That really showed Rick how much life is so precious. And I love that moment. And it also showed and was able to be told to Morgan that Michonne actually did steal his protein bar. At the end of the episode, we see Rick return back to Alexandria, obviously because Morgan sent him back and he was going to be the one to try and find Carol. And then Abraham and Rick started talking about relationships. And within The Walking Dead, I kind of want to just brush upon this a little bit because we see a lot of relationships happening within Season 6. I feel as though it is a way to get the viewer more engaged in the show besides just the zombies and other enemies that could potentially happen. Negan. But we found out, obviously a long time ago, that Glenn is married to Maggie. So they are like the king and queen of relationships on The Walking Dead as of now. They're like the only couple that's probably not just like married, I guess you could say, but they are like the only like couple that has like been within the show lines for a long time. Rick has obviously just met Michonne, so that relationship is going well. Abraham and Sasha have just hooked up together, so there is a lot of relationships going on. And then obviously we know that Tobin hooked up with Carol. And I don't know how well that's going to go because we don't even know if Morgan's going to return with Carol or what the story is on that. Maybe they're going to run into Negan. Who knows if Morgan's going to make it, whatever the case happens with that. But I just wanted to say there's just a lot of relationships going on. And now the part that you have all been waiting to see in slow motion. We are going to play the final scenes of the show. Let's roll.
You'll be alright.
Now, my first thought in watching this actually on TV was the fact that Daryl got shot, obviously. That's what it looked like. And the fact that he didn't die. That was my first thought, honestly, because, number one, as we can tell from last week, they gave Denise a huge, a thing for when she died. I'll say a thing, because that's what they did. She died, it was kind of like, and then at the end of the episode, you see them burying Denise, and she was a part of the show since Season 5. Yeah, she's a major character, I guess you could say, since Season 6 has started, but in reality, honestly, if Daryl died, they wouldn't have ended the show like that. And plus, on top of that, he wasn't in the memoriam of the Talking Dead, so we know that he's not dead. And plus, Dwight at the end of the episode says, "You'll be alright." But we do know from this that Dwight ends up shooting his gun and it ends up hitting Daryl in some way. That's what we do know. That is what is confirmed from the end of this, as you saw in the slow motion clip. Dwight shoots his gun, and the rest is history. So you could leave your comments below on what you think about that, because it's obviously controversial, but in my own opinion, obviously, he wasn't in the memoriam, so it's confirmed fact that he didn't die, but you all can have different opinions on what you think happened. They would never give a major character like this that little time, especially 5 seconds right when the episode ends. They would never do that. I mean, they could. It's The Walking Dead. It could change things up, but I don't think that he honestly died this episode, and that's my final verdict. So in the preview for next week's episode, obviously, it is a 90-minute season finale. So get ready and get your popcorn ready for this, because this is the end of Season 6, and then we'll have Season 7 come in October time, which seems like a long ways from now, which it usually is. But in the premiere, or the preview, I should say, of the Season 6 finale, we see Father Gabriel talking to Rick and how they have plans for rendezvous, whatever happens if the Saviors do attack, and his first priority is Judith, and Rick is happy with this. and Father Gabriel kind of agrees, and it looks like they're going to some sort of deal. So it looks like before they're going to try and make a deal with the Saviors, and the Saviors obviously don't want any part of this because of what Rick's actions were in the past. That's my prediction and what I've seen from that preview. So I hope you did all enjoy this week's episode of The Walking Dead Reviews. Next week will be the final episode of Season 6 until Season 7 returns back in October. So I can't believe the Season 6 is already over, but already close to being over, and next week will be the final episode of this. But I hope you do all enjoyed, or I hope you have all enjoyed. That didn't even make any sense what I just said. I'll see you on next week's episode. I'm NinjaGeek. I'm out, and peace.